So, what I'm going to do is I am going to motion in this direction, and I think a video is going to play. It's about a 4-minute video of the Empire State Building. If I explain the project, it takes 15. If you watch the video, it's 4 minutes and 10 seconds. Let's watch the video.
On March 17, 1930, in the shadow of the Great Depression, construction began on a building that would become the icon of the New York City skyline, the Empire State Building. A testament to optimism in the face of economic uncertainty, it would become one of the most famous properties in commercial real estate and be considered one of the 7 wonders of the modern world.
Everything about this spectacular operation, its height, its scale, the speed with which it was erected, symbolized American ascendancy, that it was a technological power, a business power that competed on the world stage.
Now, in the midst of a new economic crisis and concerns about climate change, a diverse group of organizations is retrofitting the Empire State Building for the next century, radically improving its energy efficiency, indoor environment, and carbon footprint. They are reinventing the Empire State Building to be a new icon of sustainability.
When you look at really every city of the world, especially those in more developed countries, the biggest single source of carbon emissions is the energy use in buildings.
It's often in the 70 to 80% of the total energy used in a city goes into the operation of buildings.
The only way we're really going to impact reduction in energy usage and resources and carbon and things like that is to tackle the issue of existing building retrofits.
Teams from the Clinton Climate Initiative, energy consultants Rocky Mountain Institute, building efficiency experts Johnson Controls, and real estate services provider Jones Lang LaSalle gathered in the summer of 2008 for an innovation workshop to overcome the diverse challenges of retrofitting commercial buildings.
Everyone talks about energy modeling. Well, we do energy modeling. Everyone talks about building a building profile for energy consumption. Well, we've built it. Everyone talks about determining what the impacts will be from different investments and changes you might make. Well, we're actually doing that here.
So via the windows, the envelope, controlling outside air, and through all of those measures, we're able to put in less supply to the building and make it a more efficient as well as comfortable place.
The innovation here was to take it from somewhere in the 15 to 20% savings up to 35 to 40% savings.
Detailed analysis over the following months led to retrofits that would cost-effectively reduce energy use by 38% at the Empire State Building and save 105,000 metric tons of CO2 over the next 15 years.
In this project, we've shown that we can not only save cost over the long term, but we can reduce carbon and we can increase the value and competitiveness of the buildings. Those are 3 things that every owner of real estate wants to do.
There's more and more evidence now that buildings that are sustainable drive more value, higher sale price, higher rental price. I think that if we can put a model out there that works, others will embrace and that will begin to change the face of real estate.
It's a win for everybody and a shining example of what can be done in big cities all over the world.
Government officials, mayors of big cities are really interested in making a difference, and they need examples like this.
So it's truly my hope that people will be able to look at what we do here. They'll be able to short circuit all those steps through which the team went to figure out how to design a process.
So it has a real rippling effect beyond just this building and this city.
There are 3.8 million visitors that come to the Empire State Building every year. We'd also like to share our message of sustainability with those visitors.
We couldn't be happier to have something as significant an icon as the Empire State Building that will serve as witness and as a new beacon of how you can be energy efficient and make the world a better place. And this will be one of the finest examples for the world to see.
But this is a building everyone in the world knows. This is a project that should get fantastic attention, and if we can show in a building like this that it makes money for the owner and it makes money for the tenants, it's pretty hard for everyone else to ignore it. So this is sort of a fantastic global flagship example for others to copy.
The Empire State Building once again has become a symbol of our potential, that through ingenuity, teamwork, and resolve, we can meet the challenges of climate change and renew our economy on a foundation of sustainability.
This project is not only good for the Earth, for the battle against climate change, it also makes real financial sense. If even a fraction of the buildings in the United States or our world were to carry out similar ones, the impact would be profound. More projects like this in the future will continue to create incredible opportunities for change across America and all across the world, helping to save our environment while stimulating genuine economic growth, innovation, and job creation. With all of our economic troubles here in America, it's something we really need now.
Okay, so that was our great idea, but really this great idea is the combination of a bunch of really, really good ideas. And I want to share with you a couple of the ideas that are buried in this story that I think could be taken advantage of by almost everyone in the room. First is, what's different about this project is that we used an integrated design process. Now, many of you have probably heard of integrated or integrative design. It's often used in the early stages of designing a green building. If you want a LEED Platinum building and you want to do it at the minimum possible cost, it's critically important to get all of the technology providers, the construction company, the architects, everyone working together. Integrated design is this idea that, well, if I add a little more insulation, I can reduce the size of the boiler. If I use super insulated glass, I can use smaller air conditioning units. I'm trading off operating cost and first cost with capacity and initial investment. I can come up with an optimum design. That process is very rarely done in retrofits. In fact, I was in Abu Dhabi 2 weeks ago for the World Future Energy Summit, and I had the pleasure of watching Amory Lovins actually come in first runner-up in this prize. Out of 400 entrants, Amory Lovins was second, which is well-deserved, actually. And he won the prize for his pioneering work in integrative design. How we applied that in the Empire State Building is we looked at about 60 potential improvements, and we analyzed various combinations of them. And the reason this project, which is going to save 38% energy, this building is going to be in the top 10% of all commercial buildings in the United States. It's going to save 105,000 tons of carbon over 15 years. It's going to qualify for LEED Gold along with all the other green operational characteristics in the building. The reason it was able to do that and have a 3.1-year payback is through this integrated design. See, it turns out that the Empire State Building didn't air condition the common spaces. When air conditioning was added in 1951, they only air conditioned the tenant spaces. It wasn't required back then to be a Class A building to air condition the whole building. Well, now, obviously, you would need to do that. So in their capital budget, which included about $100 million of investment in things that impacted energy and the environment, was a big chiller plant, all right? That big chiller plant would increase the cooling capacity by about 1/3 so you could air condition the whole building. Well, we learned that if we remanufactured the windows using a process Serious Materials has developed. In fact, there was a factory on the 5th floor of the Empire State Building that remanufactured 6,512 windows. That by doing that and by reducing the lighting loads, we didn't have to build a new chiller plant at all. We could basically improve the efficiency of the existing chiller plant and meet the loads. We saved so much money by not building the chiller plant, we paid for all the rest of the improvements, a key aspect of this particular project. Now, what's interesting is because of the need to put that chiller plant in, we had this big bunch of money that we could use to spend in other ways, to be smarter about the design of the project. If you just walked into that project and you did the same 8 improvement measures that we did in the building, it actually wouldn't pay for itself. And you think, Gee, well, that doesn't make sense. We did kind of common sense things. We insulated the walls, we put in new air conditioning, we upgraded the chiller efficiency, windows. That's all stuff on the left side of the McKinsey curve. How many of you have seen the McKinsey cost abatement curve? Everybody. It's iconic, right? And what you believe is that everything on the left side has a negative cost, right? In fact, we love that chart. We've got t-shirts made up, right? You know, go ahead, be negative, right? It's sort of a rallying cry for energy efficiency. Well, the brutal reality is that in this particular project, if we had just chose those 8 things and it wasn't during a major retrofit and we didn't have to increase the cooling capacity and offset that with the retrofits, it actually wouldn't have paid back. It had a negative net present value. So a lot of the things we believe to be true aren't necessarily true. So you do have to time these things with the overall retrofit, and that's one of the big learnings of the project. The other big learning of the project is that over half the savings were in the tenant spaces. Normally when a building owner does a retrofit, little chiller plant stuff, maybe some lighting, putting variable speed drives on the motors, 10, 15% savings, everybody's happy. Well, that's not necessarily a good solution. In fact, well over half of the savings were actually the improvements in the tenant space. But that's tricky, right? We all know there are misaligned incentives between the building owner and the tenants. We all know that tenants move in and out of the building over time and that you can't have one big project where you make all the changes at once. So the things we did at this project to help that out is, one, we fixed the leasing structure so that every tenant space that's large enough gets their own meter, they pay their own bill, all right? They're incentivized to fit out their space in an efficient way. We gave them tools which allowed them to estimate their energy bills very precisely and calculate the payback for high efficiency retrofits. The other interesting thing we did is every single tenant gets a dashboard that looks at their actual energy use, computes it per square foot, compares it to last week, last month, last year, and most importantly, compares their space with others like them. So let's say you're a lawyer on the 11th floor, all right? You can compare the energy density of your fit out with every other law firm in the Empire State Building. Someday, maybe every other law firm in New York. And that sort of competition and giving them the information is sort of like the Prius dashboard. I took a Prius cab in two nights ago. It was great. I made the mistake of asking the cab driver, what's your mileage? He started flipping through screens. He sounded like the design engineer for Toyota. I mean, he knew so much about the efficiency down to 1/10 of a miles per gallon. Lots of things. Well, that's the type of technology we're putting in the Empire State Building to really help the tenants minimize their energy. The last thing we did, which is very important in the Empire State Building, is we're investing a lot in measurement and verification. Tony Malkin, the owner, he's a great businessman, but he says, I want to really make sure that I saved energy. So one thing he did, he made us all agree that we're going to publish all of the energy data, all the calculations on a public website, basically forever, for 15 years. He made us guarantee the performance of the project over 15 years, and we have a detailed simulation of the building, so we know exactly what it should be saving and how much energy we actually saved. That's a critical element for other owners that may want to finance those improvements. In general, there's very little disclosure and openness. So I think one of the recommendations would be don't wait for your city or your municipality to force you to publish the results. Actually use it as a positive. So how many of you own a 102-story building? Okay. There are a couple, particularly in China when I go there. A few hands raise up, right? Now, how many of you own buildings? Okay, a few of you own buildings. If you own a building, here'd be my advice. You want to really, really look at that building during when you're buying a building, when you're selling a building, or a major renovation, particularly like the Empire State Building. Please, please look to do a deep retrofit. Look deeply, bring in an expert cross-functional team to look at all of the opportunities. If you're not building a new building and you just want to tune it up, then retro commission. By all means, as was mentioned by the previous speaker, tuning up a building can save 5, 10, maybe even 15% without capital investment, okay? That's a snack. That's picking up the low-hanging fruit. But if you're going to do a major renovation or you're buying a new building, please go for the whole meal. Also, share the information about your building. Make sure that people value the fact that you've invested in your building. It's going to have lower operating costs. How many of you lease space in buildings? Okay, if you lease space in buildings, you have a role as well. When you renegotiate that lease, look for a green building. Look for a building that's efficient. We need, through the tenants, to drive the market towards more efficient and green buildings. Get a kind of lease where you pay your own energy bills. Triple net, green lease, goes by various names. You want to make your decisions count. You want to reap the benefits of any investment that you make in a green fit out. And please, please fit out that space such that you get the payback based on the term of the lease. You want it to be as efficient as possible. That's good for you, and it's also good for the building, okay? Also, put in the meters and share that information with your employees and the tenants in this space. This idea of the Prius dashboard for every tenant is a very powerful concept. Get your employees involved in turning things off and things such as that. A lot of short payback items are actually in the tenant space, so you can do surprisingly much without investing much additional there. So I think whether you own a building, whether you work and lease in buildings, there are a lot of things you can do. Tony Malkin is a great businessman, okay? He's a very successful investor in real estate, but he's also a great friend of the planet. And I think those two attributes are things that all of us want to aspire to. Hopefully this is a good example, something that we can use to inform markets around the world. And I thank you very much for your attention.